Okay, well, good morning. Thank you all for joining today. It looks like we have a good turnout. We have a very, very robust agenda for our weekly call this week. Lots of updates on upcoming events, different things happening. But we are very fortunate. We have three great speakers today to give you an update on different items. We'll have an update from Larry Johnson, our health department director, on the vaccine situation, and update from Gary Jones from Governor Whitmer's office, and then also a familiar name who's not been on a while but has been a huge help to many businesses in Shiawassee County since the start of the pandemic, Nancy Chinonis from Klein and Griffin, who has provided some great updates on labor law, specifically as it relates to COVID-19. And I've been getting correspondence from a number of you that have had questions regarding employees and whatnot with COVID issues. So we'll cover those topics first, and then we'll get into some additional activities after that. So I do want to kick it off with Larry. Once again, we continue to hear from folks about what's going on with vaccines, what's the latest. So we want to continue to stay on top of it. I do want to thank the health department and Memorial Healthcare. They put out weekly updates on Mondays about the vaccine situation, which I send out to all of you so that you're in the know about what the latest is. So Larry and Memorial Healthcare have a standing invitation to come on this call, and Larry is on today. So Larry, what's the latest from the health department?
Hi, Justin. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's good to be back. I like talking to you and giving you an update. I'll start with our numbers situation here in the county. We're going to be reporting out today our daily update, and we're on a consistent trend downward in terms of new cases week over week, so that's a good thing. Last week we hit our lowest case total since October 21st, and that was at 46 cases. And our active cases had dropped to 157. Our positivity rate last week was 5.8%, and this week it is down to 4.7%. So this is the first time we've been under 5 in some time. So we're seeing a positive trend in that direction. We're very happy about that, and we need to continue to keep that momentum going. We sent out our daily yesterday for the vaccine update. So we do the vaccine update on Monday, and we do the numbers update on Wednesdays. To date, we've received 3,300 Moderna doses, both first and second dose, and we have administered 3,393. So 93 more than we received. And you may ask why that is, and that's because we can get extra draws out of some of the vials, and we don't waste anything. So we've got a really good staff that's very efficient at being able to do that, and every dose is just so valuable. So 3,300 is what has been shipped to us. This week, we ran into a hitch with weather from last week, so we have not received our allocation for this week yet. Normally we get them on Mondays. We have been told and notified that we are still going to get it, but it is not in the freezer yet. So it makes it difficult to plan upcoming clinics when I don't have it in the facility here. We do have a second dose clinic set for Friday for the school staff, so I'm hopeful that we make sure we get our vaccine. But the weather threw a national problem into everything that was happening last week. Still working on the 65 and up age group. I'm pleased to say we are making some progress on that. We've had a list that you probably heard about of over 4,000 people. We've now got that under 3,500, and we expect that some of those individuals on our list may have already gotten a dose somewhere else. So we're still cleaning up our list and working through it. Working with community partners to assist in this process, but as you know, the supply remains limited. And that's the real challenge. So hopefully we can continue to see increases. One bit of news that's coming out that is new for you, and I'm going to be sending some information to Justin to share with you later, but on March 1st, They're going to expand the phase to include food and agricultural manufacturing. Okay, this is not restaurant, staff, or grocery stores. This is more in the processing, the more manufacturing settings. So I'm going to have a clear definition of what that is for you all, and I'm going to share that through Justin. And our plan going forward then after March 1st will be to do probably a 75-25 split, 75% seniors, 65 and over, and then 25% that ag and food manufacturing, following the state's guidance. We're strictly following the state's guidance, so we plan to do that, and that'll be showing that we are moving forward. Of course, the supply of the vaccine is going to be a limiting factor, but as long as we get adequate vaccine, we're going to be able to move to that breakdown. One other thing I just want people to be aware of is just still be careful out there, be cautious. You probably read in the Argus there was a considerable outbreak up in New Lothrop schools, so that that involved them having to transition to virtual learning for I believe the rest of this week, possibly into next. So it's still out in the community. I mean, don't let your guard down. Just continue to be safe. Follow the safe practices, and just hopefully we can keep hammering here and keep getting this vaccine out as we get it in. So with that, Justin, I'll turn it back to you in case anyone has any questions.
Yeah, let's. I'm just going to open it up right now. I want to go to Gary next from Governor Whitmer's office. But does anybody have any immediate questions for Larry right now? If you do, hit *6 on your phone. Anybody have any questions for Larry? Okay. Thank you, Larry. I'm going to turn it over to Gary now. Gary Jones, Governor Whitmer's office, thank you for joining. What's the latest from the state level?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Justin. Sorry that I was getting off the mute. So as many states have been experiencing consistent extreme cold temperatures, the governor recently signed an executive order declaring a state of energy emergency in Michigan, and it is ordered to ensure adequate propane distribution over the next coming days. Last week, many of you probably saw, she joined President Joe Biden to tour the Pfizer Global Manufacturing Campus in Kalamazoo, marking Michigan as one of President Biden's first official visits while in office. The governor also recently released her third executive budget. The executive budget recommendation follows a recent supplemental budget request for the current fiscal year that was sent to the legislature on January 20th, which would provide $5.6 billion in new funding for Michigan's recovery from the pandemic. That supplemental request requires action by the legislature to ensure the full benefits of Governor Whitmer's Michigan COVID recovery plan are realized, funding which includes support for small business, unemployment benefits, food assistance, rental assistance, the Office of Rural Development, and schools. A state task force urges new state policy to tackle root causes of poverty and bring opportunity to more Michiganders. Lifting millions of Michiganders out of poverty will require bold new initiatives, expanded state policies, and a significant financial investment, according to a new report released by the Michigan Poverty Task Force. And lastly, Governor Whitmer announced nearly 6,000 small businesses across Michigan were awarded $52.5 million. Critical relief for small businesses across the state, including in Shiawassee County, has been awarded to date through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's Michigan Small Business Survival Grant Program. And actually, going back to a comment that Larry made, you can actually learn more about workers within the food and agricultural sector who are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine starting March 1st. I sent out an email, and I do believe, Justin, it was late last night, so forgive me, it was about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but it does have that explanation inside of there in regards to those food and agricultural sector workers who will be available or who will be eligible, to receive the COVID-19 vaccine beginning March 1st. And so with that, I will take a couple questions if there's any.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Any questions for Gary? If you do, please hit *6 on your phone. Anything for Gary or Larry? Anybody have anything? Okay, thank you, Gary. Appreciate you joining us as usual and giving an update. Nancy Chinonis, I mentioned earlier, Nancy has been a really great resource for a number of firms here in Shiawassee County on labor law questions. She joined several calls in the past regarding COVID-19 and its impacts on employment and taking time off and dealing with the virus and things like that. And we've been starting to get a few more questions from folks. So I thought it'd be great to have Nancy come on and give us the latest of what's happening out there. And if there's any new news or anything that our employers need to be aware of as we continue to deal with the effects of the pandemic. So Nancy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you everyone for having me today. Like Justin said, I'm an attorney at Klein Griffin, which is a law firm in Flint, Michigan. We're a full-service law firm offering employment, business, general civil litigation, and estate planning services. And we do have a fairly large practice in Shiawassee County. What I'd like to do today is to piggyback off of some of the things I've previously discussed with you. You should have in your files some charts that I had provided a long time ago about the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And that act actually expired on December 31st of 2020. So employers no longer have an obligation to provide paid sick leave or emergency family medical leave to employees for absences related to the coronavirus. However, there was a new law passed on December 29th, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, and that's also called the CAA. And under that Consolidated Appropriations Act, if employers choose to continue to provide leave that meets the Family First Coronavirus Response Act requirements voluntarily, they will be provided tax credits for providing that leave through March 31st of 2021. So through March 31st of this year. So the extended family medical leave or the emergency paid sick leave, those benefits can still voluntarily be paid to employees through March 31st of this year. And I've received quite a few questions about this, so I would like to go over kind of some of the most frequently asked questions about this change. And when it comes to the tax consequences, I encourage all of my clients to speak with their CPA, but generally, here are some of the most frequently asked questions I've received. First, can I require an employee to use his or her accrued pay time off or vacation pay and still claim that tax credit? The answer to that is no. So paid leave under the FFCRA is in addition to the employee's other leave entitlements, and therefore the voluntary plan for 2021 is under those same guidelines. And so to receive the tax credit, employees cannot be required to use the pay time off. However, personal time, vacation time, medical leave or sick leave time can be paid to supplement the FFCRA-like leave up to the amount of the employee's normal earnings without jeopardizing the tax credit. So if you have specific questions on that, I would refer you to your CPA, but I want everyone to know that those tax credits are still available. And then the next big question that comes up is, since those mandatory paid leave provisions have expired, what do we do if we have an employee who has a coronavirus-related absence? And that's something each business is going to have to handle based on the needs and the size of their business. So even though the family medical leave or emergency paid sick leave is no longer mandatory, it's likely that employers will still have employees who have COVID-related absences, and they'll have to determine within their policies how that's going to be counted against the employee. So if the employee uses their normal sick time, vacation time, PTO, and then there may be, depending on the size of the employer, family medical leave, just the regular family medical leave that we're all familiar with, that could be available to the employee, or a leave of absence, which may be required under the ADA. And if you have specific questions on that, I would recommend that you contact an employment lawyer. But if your employee contracts or is exposed to COVID-19, they still should be encouraged to remain out of the workplace and use whatever leave time is available to them. Another important question is, if we're going to use this extended family medical leave on a voluntary basis through March 31st of 2021, can those absences be used for employees who need to care for a child whose school is closed or is virtually learning and needs supervision? And this is a tough question. There's no specific guidance from the Department of Labor indicating whether this leave for childcare would count as FMLA leave as it did under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. But because this continuation is voluntary and for the purposes of the tax credit under the existing language, it appears that child care leave taken in 2021 will not qualify for family medical leave, and it should not be designated as such. That's my recommendation. And then, so that's the family medical leave extension. The next big topic that everyone has been asking questions about are the COVID vaccines. Everyone's really excited that these are becoming available. And now the questions are, what can we do and what can we ask and what can't we ask in the workplace? So number one, can an employer ask an employee if he or she has received the COVID vaccine? Yes, employers are permitted to ask employees if they've been vaccinated against COVID-19. However, you need to be very careful as an employer not to solicit other information about any employee's underlying medical conditions. So if you're asking and the answer is a simple yes or no, that is a lawful question, but you don't want to get into why not or mention, hey, don't you have this underlying condition, and then get into a health-related discussion with the employee, because you may be violating the American Disabilities Act or Persons with Disabilities Act under Michigan law. So you need to be very careful about that. The next big question that we receive is, can we require our employees to receive the COVID vaccine when it is available to them? And that is very much, it's a multi-factor question. So it depends on the industry that you're in. Generally, a lot of healthcare providers and hospitals have federal and state mandates as to what their employees need to undergo as far as flu shots and whether the COVID vaccine will be mandatory or not. General businesses have a different set of criteria that they need to evaluate. All businesses have a duty to provide an environment that is safe from known dangers and harm to the employees. The question is, does the COVID vaccine fall under that category? And then you also have to take into account many other potential liabilities about the COVID vaccine. So there may be reasons, religious reasons why an employee does not want to be vaccinated, or they may have some kind of underlying medical condition where it may not be safe for the employee to receive the COVID vaccine. So there are American Disabilities, Persons with Disabilities analyses that need to be undertaken, and also some civil rights analysis that has to be considered before requiring the vaccine. And if someone has one of these exceptions where they are opposed to or for religious reasons cannot have that vaccine, the employer would be required to make a reasonable accommodation. And there are a lot of different things that can happen for that accommodation. A lot of employees are working at home, and right now it seems that the continuation of the working from home is one reasonable accommodation. Also working socially distanced with masks and shields and all of those other PPE requirements is something that can be considered. If your workforce is unionized or is covered by a collective bargaining agreement, to require a vaccine would be a change in the conditions of employment that would have to be bargained for under the collective bargaining agreement or CBA. So management and the union would have to negotiate any of those types of requirements. If you are considering requiring or encouraging employees to receive the COVID vaccine, my recommendation is that you develop a policy that outlines what that recommendation or requirement is and have it in writing so that it's clearly communicated to all employees. And I would suggest the basis for those recommendations or requirements be put in that writing. And if you have specific questions about that, that's something that you can contact me about after this call. And I'd be happy to walk you through what you should or should not do. If you do have a mandatory vaccine policy, you're going to have to consider what will happen if I have an employee or a group of employees who refuses to comply with that mandatory vaccine policy. Is it something that you're willing to terminate employees for not receiving the vaccine? That's something that should be considered before the policy is communicated to the employees. And then again, if an employee refuses because of a religious reason or because of a legitimate medical condition, that vaccine cannot be mandated, and you may have a lawsuit brought against you and have legal liabilities for requiring someone to have that vaccine. Generally speaking, there's been a lot of positive information about the vaccine, encouraging employees and community members to have the vaccine, explaining all of the reasons why it is safe and the benefits that come from it. And it is absolutely okay to provide information to your employees and to your workforce about the pros and or cons of the COVID vaccine. And right now, just because of the timing of the vaccine and because of the limited availability, I'm generally advising most of my business clients and employment clients that they may want to wait to consider what's going on before they decide whether a vaccine should be mandatory in the workplace or not. A vast majority of employees are not eligible to receive the vaccine yet. And so it might be better to wait until that is more widely available before you make a final decision on whether a COVID vaccine should be mandatory. And then one last thing, if you are going to require the COVID vaccine for employees, you may be required to pay the cost for the vaccine and the time that the employee spends receiving the vaccine. So under the Fair Labor Standards Act, an employer must cover any work-related expenses for an employee if the cost of the expense would drop the employee below minimum wage. And so that's just something that you have to consider depending on the pay scale of your workforce. If someone needs to spend several hours waiting in line for the vaccine, and then depending if there's an out-of-pocket cost for the receipt of the vaccine, that's something that will need to be addressed prior to mandating the vaccine for those employees. So that's what I have for today, Kevin. Family First Coronavirus Response Act extension and vaccine policies. If anyone has any other specific questions, I'm always happy to address general questions as things get more specific. If it's not something that can be answered really quickly, then that may be something that we need to schedule a meeting for outside of this call. But I'm happy to provide any additional updates and answer any questions. Thank you.
Wow, Nancy, great information. A lot of good updates there. Hopefully a lot of the business folks on the call found that helpful. I do want to open up the floor. Does anybody have any specific questions for Nancy right now? If you do, hit *6 on your phone, please. Anybody have anything for Nancy right now? Any labor law or employment questions? Nancy, what's the best way to get a hold of you if any of our listeners want to follow up?
If anybody needs to follow up, I will give you my office telephone number. It's area code 810-232-3141, or you can send me an email, NCHINONIS, like Sam, at CCG, Klein Griffin, lawyers with an S.com, and Justin, I can email you my contact information if you want to share that again, just in case anyone has trouble writing it down. But I'm happy to provide the service for your organization. And if anyone has any fact-specific questions, it's probably better not to ask in front of everyone, but I'm happy to have a short telephone conference.
And you've done that many times for our clients, and I want to thank you for all that you've done once again since the start of the pandemic. That does it for our speakers. I want to do one last call for Nancy, Gary, or Larry. Does anybody have any questions? Now would be the time to ask. And if you do, hit star 6, please. Anybody have anything? Okay, well, thank you again to all of our speakers today. A lot of great updates. Wanted to give you a few more updates. A lot of good things happening. Want to let you know, we mentioned this last week, Laura Archer from the Y and Emily Mara from the United Way were on regarding this new food distribution program, buying food from local restaurants. And being able to distribute that to people that need food in the community. I'm happy to report that we already have 10 different restaurants that have put together their information as far as interest in participating in the program. An open survey is out there right now to local restaurants that's due back by this Friday. So if you are a restaurant or you have friends that you know who own or run a restaurant and might be interested in this program, this was a $100,000 grant from United Way to the Y to be able to spend this money in local restaurants and support them. It's actually called Shiawassee Soars, supporting our area restaurants. So if anyone, as I said, is involved in that industry, that survey to participate is open until Friday. So definitely encourage you to do that if you're interested. A few more items coming up. We've got a new strategic plan that SEDP is undergoing. You probably saw an email on that. We are having focus groups, virtual focus groups in the next few weeks, inviting our stakeholders to participate and learn about what we're thinking for the next 5 years and wanting your input and guidance and making sure we're doing the right thing with our work plan. So you should have seen an email on that. Space is limited. We're only doing 5 of them, and there's only 15 spots per group, and people are signing up quite a bit already. So I would definitely encourage you to sign up. We'd love to have your input. We'll be sending out another email invitation here yet this week. And then 3 items coming up for this Thursday. Busy day Thursday. We are doing a coffee update for our investors at 8 a.m. A little different than this call. That call is more about what we're seeing in the local economy, companies we're working with, things like that. You're certainly welcome to participate there. At 1 o'clock, there is a webinar being put on by Senator Peters' office that has to do with federal business funding programs like PPP, things like that. It's in partnership with the SBA. So there was an email sent out on that. And then finally, I want to turn over the mic to Greg Klapko, president of the Chamber. We're partnering with the Chamber on an e-commerce event at 11 a.m. on this week. So Greg, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. Thanks for the opportunity. We're bringing the e-commerce series back here in 2021 with the SEDP and the Chamber of Commerce here sponsoring this. This Thursday at 11 o'clock to 12 to noon. It's a virtual event. The program is free of charge, and you can register by contacting Jody at the SEDP. And we're glad to have Davis Cartage actually be our program sponsor for this one. And this program will be Michael Jordan of David Lauren Photography, who brings 30 years of experience working with products from cars to coffee, will be our speaker. This is an Ask the Expert session, so kind of get your answers to your most pressing questions from photo compositions, needed equipment, or how to get the most out of your photo catalog. He'll be covering all those areas for us on Thursday, and so we're looking forward to that. And if you have any questions, reach out to myself, Justin, or Jody, or Brent at the SEDP. And then finally, if I may, we do have a topics at 12 here today. It's a virtual event here at the Armory. We're actually having some people in person. We had some RSVPs for that. But we've got a speaker today talking about the next normal and what the next work normal is going to be like. So we're looking forward to that today at noon. And if you'd like to attend that virtually, please contact us here at the chamber at 989-723-5149. So there's a couple of quick updates, Justin.
Great, thank you, Greg. Yeah, and you should have got an email from me as well on the topics at 12 too. So a lot of activity happening right now. That is all I have for the agenda today. As always, thank you for your participation. We'll be back with you next Tuesday. In the meantime, if anything comes up, give us a holler. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.